Hello, welcome to Interesting Colors. My name is Gary, and this video is all about the watch list symbols and how they're set up. It turns out, not too long ago, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he asked me how I got the symbols for the S&P 500 components, S&P 500 sectors. And I thought, well, that's probably a pretty good topic for a video because you can't directly pull them out of any TOS public lists. So I thought maybe it would be a useful thing to discuss. So it turns out I get virtually all of the symbols that I use out of either the Dow 30 or the S&P 100 or the NASDAQ 100. And it turns out that they're all public lists. So if you come down here and you pick one, you go to public and you cruise down here, you can find the Dow on the first public entry right at the bottom. That's the Dow 30. You go to the next one, you can get the NASDAQ. I know you can get the NASDAQ 100. And if you go to the third one or the fourth one, you can get to the S&P 100. But it turns out that when it comes to the sectors, you cannot, they don't exist. But I like to go and look at, especially when I'm, but when I'm looking for things, I like to go and get, there's a list over here that just has the S&P sector indices. It's a pretty short list. The problem is they don't make any sense. So on my watch list, I've added a description line so you can see where it's at. But I use the same criteria for evaluating who's on top, where the strong sectors are, and that's kind of where I start from, is this list here. And if I know that, then I can jump to the appropriate sector that I'm looking for. So let's jump back over here for a second. So I like to use the top three sectors, if you will, for my detailed search for the stocks. I have one other set that I look in, and I call it the overarching assets. And it's basically a combination of all the indexes and everything that I talked about before. So it includes all of the S&P 500, NASDAQ, and Dow 30. It's got countries thrown in there. It's got commodities thrown in there. It's got all of the S&P 11 sectors in there, basically by ETF, so I can find them. It's got the bond market. So this is a very useful list. Sometimes when nothing pops to the top like I'm looking for, I might go back and look at the assets list and say, maybe is a good time to invest in something else besides what's happening in our markets, especially if we are trading with US dollars and the dollar isn't maybe going as far as it used to be. In any case, let's jump back to the sectors for a second. So, like I say, these S&P 500 sectors are comprised of the following 11 major areas. And this chart is representative of the distribution of the number of stocks within the S&P 500. And you can't take these percentages literally. They're provided here as a representation to show you that you are going to have way more stocks to pick from in the IT sector than you're going to find in, say, the real estate sector or in the utility sector. So with those thoughts in mind, when you start actually scanning for specific companies that are in those smaller sectors, you're not going to have nearly as many to pick from as you would from IT or health or financials. Okay, so let's talk about the scans and what we're talking about. Well, it turns out if you come back up here and you select your categories, there's a spot down here where it says by industry. So all you really need to do is come down here and select whatever you're looking for and say, give me all of energy, and that's what you're going to get. You're going to get all of energy. But unfortunately, you're going to get all of whatever's in the energy category. And we need to prune this down just a little bit. So my thoughts on at least what I came up with is something along the following lines for scan criteria. So in our case, scan would read something like, we'll scan for all symbols and intersect them with the energy sector. Make the closing price greater than $20 a share. Make the market cap more than 5,000 million. Make the average volume for the last 30 days more than 2 million shares a day. Sort by market cap in the descending order and take the top 30 stocks, 90 stocks, whatever it happens to be. And if you do that, you go to scans over here, if you will. And it just so happens that I've got one in here for technology, but let's load one up that's for energy. So I've got one here. If I say load up the scan for energy, we end up with looks something like this, where we select all symbols, we intersect with energy, the last closing price is greater than $20 a share, the market cap is a minimum of over 5,000 million, and the average daily volume, here's the daily volume, for over the last 30 days is greater than 1 million shares traded per day. And if you hit the sort button or the scan button, you're going to end up with 49 shares. Now, it turns out this scan is legit. All you need is to save it. You could save it here as a scan query, and you could go back to your watch list and it would be there. And sure enough, if you come over here and let's pick some, here's some right here. So if you look at these scans in here, and they've got this little purplish symbol here on the left, those are direct scans. They're made just like this. But it turns out you can also save the scans as a direct watch list, and you just do that by selecting this guy, hit save as a watch list, and give it a name. And it turns out there's some reasons for doing that. So like I say, we took our sector and we built up a customized symbol list. And when we were done, like I say, we could export this thing to a watch list symbols. So the question is, why would you want to do all of this? Well, it turns out that the ThinkOrSwim uses data servers for everything, and during certain times of the day or week, if you will, those servers may be not available, or they may be under heavy usage. If you were to log on and access ThinkOrSwim right after the market's open, you may discover that your query is running just super dog slow, and that's because it's just really getting pounded. Or if you run it maybe during a weekend and the servers are down, one of those pieces is down that you asked for, it's not going to come up. You're not going to get it. So in fact, way back when, initially, I used them. I set it up as queries like this, and geez, what's wrong? Why is it taking forever? And I just concluded, I'm just going to go to a static list. So everything that I use now is based on a static list. And here's a sample of that. Here's a sample of one that we did for energy. That's one that we just did. And in the end, we save this here. We hit, yeah. So once you've hit the scan and you've got your symbols in here, then it's just a question of, oops, there's a mistake. This diagram should be going to the little pancake. You click on this, it's going to prompt you for the name of a watch list. You type in the name of your watch list and put a date on it, and the next time you go to access the watch list to select a symbol, you're going to end up that looks something like this. I did this for the Dow not too long ago. I put a date on it. This is January 1st to 12th, 112 this year and 26. So if you do that, you can create a watch list with dates on it, and those are, in fact, because the little purple thing is not there, you'll have static lists to work from. So I'm going to include in the summary note for this webcast, I'm going to include those two TOS links, one for energy and one for information technology. And they are basically the same with the exception of the average volume. It turns out for the energy sector, I set the average volume at 1 million, and for the information technology sector, I set it at 2 million shares per day. In any case, try it out, and I think you'll like it. Anyway, that's the end of this video.